Welcome to lazyreviews. Today's episode is going to be quite different as I'm going to do something very unusual for this channel. I'm going to talk about just one movie, not a franchise, not a series of movies connected in one way or another, but just one single movie. That is Ralph Bakshi's Wizards from 1977. I can already tell you that this video is going to be one hell of a mess, because honestly this is a movie that's very difficult for me to wrap my brain around. I also can't say if it's really going to be a review or what the format will be. I'll just talk about this movie because it baffles me. The existence of this movie baffles me. For those of you who don't know, Ralph Bakshi is quite influential in the more underground world of animation, especially adult-themed animation. Not just fantasy or sword and sorcery, but also other things he dabbled with. And specifically for this movie, he did hire the help of Ian Miller and Mike Pluck, both of whom are quite renowned illustrators in their own right. They were hired to do a lot of the background work and a lot of the illustrations for this film, meaning that you have all these blends of styles, and you would likely have seen either of these illustrators' drawings before in one way or another. Both of them have been drawing a lot of these Dungeons and Dragons, sword and sorcery pictures, both before and after making this movie. So I'll throw some of them up here on the screen, and you'll maybe recognize this style of theirs and realize you've probably seen it before. And if you haven't, then you probably haven't dabbled too much with this kind of art before, and that's completely fine. If so, then this movie will actually be hopefully an eye-opener to you and maybe help you explore this realm even further, because these two illustrators are quite amazing, and the touch of Bakshi on top of that, well, you actually have a splendid blend of styles in this movie. One thing that's really weird about this movie, I have seen some of his other movies as well, and it tends to be the same thing. The animation itself is not good. It's actually very, very basic, very barebone, and often a bit ugly. But then the backgrounds that these things are moving on are some of the best things I've ever seen. It's such a weird mix, to be honest. This film is full of contrast. It's full of so many things that it's so difficult to talk about. So I'll just start. Very briefly, the plot of the film.
An illuminating history bearing on the everlasting struggle for world supremacy, fought between the powers of technology and magic.
The film starts with a 10 minutes long introduction to the universe. The introduction itself starts thousands of years before the actual movie takes place, which is itself quite odd. But it just means that this film opens up with guiding you into this universe, which is quite nice because it takes place millions of years after the World Holocaust, which is a term they used to describe the nuclear Armageddon dooming the world. So in this future where humanity, there are a few purebred humans left, but most of them have turned into other species or have mutated. So we have mutants, we have elves, we have fairies, we have all these different beings that descended from humans after the nuclear apocalypse. That is already weird, but also because nuclear warfare, i.e. science, technology, is what destroyed the Earth and nearly brought an end to everything. Science and technology is banned in this distant future that takes place, as I said, I think 3 million years after the nuclear apocalypse. And also, for whatever reason, this post-apocalyptic science fiction, as it kinda is, it's also a fantasy tale because, for whatever reason, there are now magicians and wizards, people now able to do magic. And this fairy mother gives birth to two children. They're both supposed to be humans, from what I gather. They don't exactly look like humans, but one is evil and one is good. And the evil moves to the inhospitable lands, the damned, the doomed lands of not just the mutants, but of all the wretched beings that are left, even the demons that he's able to summon. Whereas the other just lives in the land of the good. He takes care of the mother, he's beloved by the mother. The other one is a recluse who wants revenge, and they battle each other. And it then takes place thousands of years after this because these wizards are capable of living a very long time. And it opens up, after the prologue, after the introduction, it opens up with evil wizards sending these weird robot assassins riding two-legged horses to assassinate the president of the world. It seems that all, not necessarily countries, but all the states of the world elected one leader who is actually portrayed as incredibly incompetent. But apparently the world will be doomed without him. So taking out an incredibly incompetent guy is apparently what will destroy the Earth. That's weird. And he's taking out, and that makes the evil wizard unleash his armies of mutants and demons and warriors of darkness and whatever. He unleashes them on the worlds of especially the elves. And they've been battling them for a long time, but the problem is that the demons and the mutants are not good fighters. They have no discipline, they have no morale, they have no sense of purpose, so they are failing in this struggle against the elves. The elves are much more organized, and the universe is weird because there's no technology, but the elves dig trenches with barbed wire, and they have steel helmets, but then they use bows and arrows and spears against the enemy. So in order to overcome this problem of having a really awful army, even though the numbers are on your side.
Pre-Holocaust technology were being dug up and marched back to Scorch One.
The evil wizard sends out his minions to dig up all the technology he can find. So not only does he have access to all the technology of the old pre-Holocaust world, and that is the word they use, by the way, I'm not being funny here, that's the word. He also finds a movie projector with a film in it depicting Adolf Hitler giving a speech while showing German troops, planes, tanks. It shows explosions. And that's what this man uses to unify his troops. It's not enough to have tanks, to have laser rifles, to have all these things to destroy the enemy, to have Stuka dive bombers. No, he unleashes the power of propaganda. He unleashes the power of Nazism on the land of the elves. So much so that he's capable of using this projector. It's a projector, it's a movie projector from our time. From 1977, I guess. And he just projects it into the sky. How does he do that? Is it magic? We don't know. It's technology, so is it magic and technology? The movie doesn't explain. But he's able to create a panorama, a 360 panorama of Hitler and the Nazi war machine to completely demoralize the enemies, leading to the defeat. And it is in this realm of neo-Holocaust, of neo-Nazism, that our incredibly incompetent wizard, his incredibly incompetent but incredibly horny fairy lady, half fairy.
Why don't you sit there for a couple hours while I figure it out?
Okay.
And his robot guardian and this one surviving elf bodyguard set out to defeat him. Defeat the evil wizard by destroying his projector of Nazism. And I think that's basically what I can tell about the story, because yeah, there are other bits and pieces. They discover the land of fairies, who are apparently much more powerful magicians than the most powerful magician in the world. They discover hordes of other elves, and there are these big battles. There are weird slapstick comedy in it.
They've killed Fritz! They've killed Fritz! Those lousy stinking yellow fairies!
This cartoonish thing that you would show children in a movie about Nazism, but where there are also women whose nipples you can see. This is the 70s. This film is pure LSD, but it's evil LSD because it has Nazism in it. This is honestly a mind-boggling movie. And now I want to dive into some of the other aspects of it, because there's so much to unpack in this film, and I'll even try to do it short. I will encourage everyone to go out and see this film. That's also why I will not, although I really, really, really want to reveal how it ends, because the ending is so mind-boggling, so out of nowhere, so contrary to the setup, that I love it. It's ballsy in a way that is difficult to even describe with words. There's so much about it. So as I said, these matte paintings are astonishing. Some of the things look like the most evil, cool stuff you have seen in 70s and 80s fantasy and novels, paintings. It's really good stuff. And it's so many different styles that in some scenes, it's actually this. I don't even know how to describe it. It's distorted, rough-edged, technological. I'll just throw it up on the screen here. I don't know how to describe it. It's just wild. It's rugged, sharp. For me, it evoked emotions of dread and awe and technophobia. And it's just so good. It's so stylish. And yeah, it has all these mixed things. And then you have weird fairies that are just cute. And there are two types of fairies because he was too lazy to draw different male and female versions with different clothes. So he just copied the same design over and over. And every time something moves, it's really, the colors are flat. The design is flat. There's often not even an inclination of where one piece of the garment ends and one where another begins. A lot of the characters have one color on all the clothes, just because it's much easier to draw one color than having them move around with different colors. It's so lazy. So this laziness, or this bare minimum of doing animation combined with this artistry is really weird. It means that while your mind might be bored or even tortured by some of the animation, you'll also have that backdrop that is so gorgeous or so profound, so extraordinary that you don't know how to feel. It's just conflicting. You have these people falling off their horses in slapstick moments. You have these nipples all over this place, these erotic jokes, these weird, funny things like this wizard is supposedly the most powerful wizard in the world, and all he does is to throw a spell that creates some food he can give a pet, or to create some brandy for himself, or to put flowers on the enemy castle. He's so incompetent. He doesn't even understand the situation he's in. They are infiltrating the evil castle, and instead of trying to infiltrate it well and keep hidden, he just goes over and talks to the evil people. And of course they realize who he is. It's honestly so poorly written that itself is an achievement. It's an accomplishment how bad this movie is. But it's also so entertaining at the same time. And I haven't even, some of the animation, I've described a lot of the animation, the drawn animation, that's quite bad. But it throws in this, and I don't know how they did this. I actually have an idea that they might have filmed it and then thrown in some colors on top, because the movements of these horses, these demonic horses, these tanks, these planes, the movements are so vibrant. They're so realistic that if this is actual animation, it is incredibly well made. I don't know how many animation styles it has. It has maybe 10 different, very, very, very different, often very contrasting designs. And it just means that even if the plot is awful and the characters are awful and so much about it that is awful, you always have something new to look forward to. You always have something that will keep you focused. It has these really stupid, bad kid jokes. And then it has people being stabbed to death where you see the eyes, all the horror in the eyes. And again, it has speeches of Hitler and Nazism displayed so often. Where are the swastika in this movie about wizards and about boobs? I don't know what to do with this film. I honestly think I could probably talk about this movie for much longer, but I would just keep repeating it myself, because honestly, this is not something that should be talked about. This is something that should be watched. So I fully encourage you to pick up this movie, because you will probably not have seen anything like it before, and you will likely never see anything like it again. This is so much a product of the 70s, of this tech phobia of the 70s, of this love with fantasy at a time where it was still in development. This was long before it had fully entrenched itself. This was when fantasy and sword and sorcerer was still this kind of niche thing that maybe a few nerds were interested in, not the thing that would draw in huge audiences as they do today. At least not this kind of fantasy, because this is not the kind of fantasy or sci-fi fantasy that was mass appealing. Most of Bakshi's movies didn't even earn their money back, or if they did, they earned slightly more than the budget. Wizards is an exception. It's actually one of his most successful movies, but it's still not successful. The box office was 9 million, which is a lot for this kind of film, especially back then. But it still shows that this is not one of those movies with a mass audience. This was a different time where these films were created, where this LSD-filled world of creativity created some absolutely puzzling pieces of art that should not be forgotten. It is time to bring some of these back, to admire them, to learn from them, to see what has been lost and should maybe be rediscovered, and maybe what's very good that it's dead and buried by now. And honestly, I don't remember when I last saw a movie with so many amazing matte paintings and such a varied, diverse display of different artistic forms, art styles, animation styles. So yeah, it's not exactly a good film, but I highly recommend it. I really think you should go and find this film. I don't think you will regret it. Even if you, as I, was a bit bored watching it, it's just something, if you like animation, if you like movies, if you like obscure movies, this is a film you should not miss. And I think that's all I'll say about this movie. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And I hope this was interesting to you. Informative, at least. Bye.